I have a story that I want to tell all of you before we kind of shut down for the week about the fact that I'm going to England tonight with my wife. Tomorrow's the 80th anniversary of D-Day, as we've been discussing, and I'm hoping, I don't want to jinx this, but I have a bucket list thing tomorrow where I expect to be at number 10 Downing Street in the exact same place that Winston Churchill was 80 years ago tomorrow.
That's so special.
That's not what I want to tell our friends on YouTube. No, I want to tell you all something different.
Okay.
This is the first time. I love going to England, and I've been privileged to have been there several times during the course of my life. I have not been there since the pandemic. I have not been there since my father passed away, which was before the pandemic. And my dad served during the Korean conflict. He never got near Korea. I've told you elements of this in the past. He spent his time as an army surveyor in Germany. And he was an army surveyor in Germany who was able on leave to go to England. And I went through his letters after his passing, and he wrote a dispatch from Stuttgart to his parents on the 18th of July, 1953. The big highlight of London, wrote my dad, was when we got to see the Queen. We saw her at Hyde Park and again at Buckingham Palace. I can imagine him like running through the streets to go. That's something I would do. You can't realize what an accomplishment that is. She doesn't come out often at all, and she and Philip were in a closed car. We stood for hours to see her. She was inspecting 80,000 civil defense people. These are my dad's words to his parents. We stood on the sidewalk of Buckingham Palace and waited. When she came, all the people rushed into the street, and her car had to go slow plowing through. We were right up front. I was about 4 feet away from her when I took pictures, but my camera was set for 10 feet. So I don't know how it will be. Such a picture is really a prize. They really worship her. Well, after my dad passed, I went through his possessions, and he had some slides, old school slides, like holding them up and so forth. And one was a blurry image that I couldn't see what it was. I actually, on Amazon, bought a viewfinder for like $3 made in China so that I could stick in the slide and look at it. Yeah. And holy smokes, here was a blurry. We're going to show it on YouTube right now. There it is. That is the photograph that my father took. Unmistakably, I think this was within a week of his passing that I looked at this picture. I'm like, oh my God, this is the picture that my dad took of the Queen.
I mean, there she is.
So
it's actually surprisingly clear.
Yeah.
That picture.
Correct. There she is, and there Philip is as well. So I'm looking at notes because I wrote this all up at the time, and immediately it occurred to me that I needed to figure out, where was that picture taken? Because he talks about Hyde Park, and he also talks about Buckingham Palace. Years ago at a charity event, I met Patrick Jeffson. Patrick Jeffson was Princess Diana's chief of staff, and we established a friendship, and he's often been a guest of mine here on POTUS and on CNN. So I told him the story, and I sent him the image, and of course, because I knew the date of Dad's letter, you could roughly determine when he'd been in England. He wrote back to me, and he said, take a look at the JPEG of a page from the Times of London, 6th of July, 1953. In the top left corner, you'll see the court circular for July the 5th. That's what tracks all the movements of the royal family, reporting that the Queen drove from Buckingham Palace to Hyde Park for a parade of veterans. From the background visible in this photo, my guess is that your father was standing somewhere near Hyde Park Corner when the royal convoy passed by. He said, of note, you'll also see that among those in attendance was the equerry Captain Viscount Althorpe, a.k.a. Johnny Spencer, Diana's dad.
Wow.
Which is kind of interesting. And then he tells me more about it. So Patrick says he thinks it was Hyde Park. In a subsequent communication, after he did this sleuthing on my behalf, he said, I know the building in the background. It's the Lanesborough. The Lanesborough, I know the Lanesborough. The Lanesborough used to be a hospital. It would have been in that era. Aleko is putting it back up right now for the benefit of our friends on YouTube. And there's a cornice. There's an unmistakable cornice in the building behind the car that lets you know it's the Lanesboro. The exterior has since been remodeled because now it's like a 5-star hotel.
Wow.
So I'm going to England, and I intend to go to that spot. I know that location.
Right.
But I'm going to go to that location.
And take a picture.
Yes,
you are.
And
how
sort of
special.
Yeah. And again, the exterior of the building looks slightly different, but I'm hoping that this is like the one thing I want to do on social media while I'm away. And I want to go to...
You can send them to me, and I can put them both next to each other if you want to do that.
Okay, I'm going to do that.
You can either do them so you click them, or
I'm
you can do one shot.
Do that.
It depends what you want.
Thank you.
But
I'm going to take you up on it. It's in Slack.
So delighted.
So you already have half.
I have half.
And I feel like I'll shoot a video, and I'm taking some notes with me to tell the story.
You know what? You always have some sort of adventure.
Well,
like quest.
I
you
know,
always have a quest.
I know where I'm staying. I'll walk. It's a mile away.
Yeah.
And I know that intersection.
That's
like the big bus tour goes through there.
Like he stood there. That's really cool.
Yeah, my dad stood there excitedly.
Yeah, and then rode home to his own parents,
taking a picture of the Queen.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and the funny thing is there's more to the story because 64 years later, our son, grandson obviously of my dad, son number 2, was studying for a semester in England. And on the day of his arrival, and not because he had a plan, by pure happenstance, there was a royal event taking place at Buckingham Palace, and he was just like in the crowd and from a distance with an iPhone took a picture that if you zoom in, you can see the hat. It's the Queen. So my dad and one of our sons each have this chance, distant encounter with Queen Elizabeth. Same Queen, 64 years later.
It's amazing. I love that story. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's meaningful. And there's so much history in England anyway. You always feel like you're walking in a historical setting anyway. But to have it be something that is your family is really quite amazing.
In my dad's eulogy, I noted that in the summer of 2017, our middle son, my dad's grandson, on his first day, stumbled upon a royal celebration. It was the Trooping of the Color, 2017, a celebration of the Queen's official 91st birthday, and stood watching the entire royal family as they came out onto the balcony at Buckingham Palace, took that image.